Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chris. I am going to break down how, if you're Tony Ferguson, how you're going to beat Conor McGregor. I'm going to break it down step by step. But if you're listening to this video, please please subscribe, because I want to put out a lot more content. And I would really appreciate everybody's support in putting out the content that I'm going to put out, if you find it advantageous, of course. But okay, let's get into it. If you're Tony Ferguson, where are you going to even start? Number one, let's look at your advantages. So if you're Tony, you obviously have an advantage in cardio. There's no doubts. There's no, questions about it. You have the super advantage in cardio. There's a lot of things that go into that. I don't have it listed here, but one of the factors is that Conor tore his ACL. It was the Max Holloway fight. They were on the ground. He tried to pass guard. He tore his ACL. He was out for over a year. It's a significant injury, very, very serious injury. And then on top of that, when he fought Chad Mendes, he partially tore his ACL. He still fought that fight. He still won the fight. He knocked Chad Mendes out. But the point being is that in their camp, one of their main factors, and I would argue one of the biggest factors, is to make sure that Conor can show up to the fight. They realize that Conor is very talented, that without Conor showing up to the fight, he's not going to get paid for the fight, obviously. So one of their big factors is making sure that Conor can show up to the fight. And they've talked about this. If you look at a lot of his other interviews, part of it is he talks about, hey, part of it is showing up to the fight, making sure you can get to the fight. So the big factor in that is that they're not out there having Conor run 50 miles a day, because they're concerned that the wear and tear on the knees, they're concerned about the longevity of the career. That's why you see Conor riding the bike. That's why you see him sometimes running on treadmills, running on gravity treadmills. You see him doing rowing machines, but you don't see him grinding as hard as he's used to grinding, as you hear about him before when he was talking about how hard he grinds coming up, and how he would spend like 24 hours in the gym, barely sleep, and then come back to the gym and just keep grinding. When you go through major injuries like that, it changes your approach to training, and they realize that, and they have accommodated for that. But what they haven't found out is how to get him in super awesome shape without hurting him in training camp. Another big factor, obviously, is wrestling. In the first round, the first 1.5 rounds, Conor can wrestle with arguably anybody. I wouldn't say anybody, but he can counter wrestle with a lot of people. I think he's got awesome technique. I think he probably has an awesome wrestling coach out there. I know he trains with an awesome camp. He's going to come prepared, but after your cardio goes, it doesn't matter how well you've prepared, how many techniques you've prepared for. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, Tony Ferguson's a better wrestler. Tony Ferguson can solidify takedowns and rounds. I would say the end of round 2, 3, 4, and 5, if Tony really wants to, with his cardio advantage, he can solidify takedowns. And if you can get takedowns, you have the chance of, dominating the position, getting to mount, getting a half guard, throwing down elbows, possibly landing submissions with his submission game. So wrestling is a big factor in it, obviously, as well. The jab, we'll get into it a little bit later, but the jab is going to be a big factor in this fight. If you're Tony Ferguson, he's got an awesome jab, surprisingly, in his striking, because he doesn't have really super technical striking, but I like his jab a lot. I like his length. He throws a pretty good jab, and on top of that, I think he uses his length pretty well. But I would say that we'll get into it a little bit later, but even though you have a good jab, you do not throw the right hand. And we'll get into, just in a couple seconds, we'll get into the right hand. But obviously, submission game, the Darce chokes, the triangle chokes, his game from the back. He trains at 10th Planet, which 10th Planet is kind of a weird gym. They specialize in no-gi. They specialize in the rubber guard. It's kind of a weird gym. It's trained under Eddie Bravo. Not talking crap on the gym, but they haven't put out a lot of awesome a lot of awesome MMA guys. You can't name a lot of MMA guys that have come from 10th Planet. I think of Streben all the way back in the day. I'm probably saying his name wrong. They haven't put out a ton of good guys, so it's really interesting that Tony chooses that gym for his jiu-jitsu. But at the end of the day, I mean, I know they do pretty good in tournaments. I know they, you look at Tony submitting Kevin Lee with a triangle choke. I mean, you can't act like that's not part of his training at 10th Planet. I mean, there's similarities in his setup and the way he finished that fight to how Eddie Bravo finished Royler Gracie way back in the day in Abu Dhabi. So, I mean, they're doing something right there, of course. But obviously, that Tony has the advantage in submissions. So let's get into the specifics about the fight. Okay, number one. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. But number one, you're going to give up the first round. If you're Tony Ferguson, you're giving up the first round. You're fine with that. You know that you have the cardio advantage. You know that if you throw too many right hands, that you're going to get countered. So number one is you're fine. You're going to give up the first round. That's number one. Conor is possibly the most dangerous fighter in 1.5 rounds. In 1.5 rounds, if you try to engage in a striking contest with Conor McGregor, it doesn't matter if you're Floyd Mayweather, it doesn't matter who the hell you are, he's one of the most dangerous fighters. He has awesome timing, he has awesome technique, he has awesome precision. He's one of the most dangerous fighters in that time frame. So you've already accepted this. Coming in this fight, you've already accepted that you're going to give up the first round. The danger is in the knockout. When you're fighting Conor McGregor, if you're going to lose that fight, you're going to get knocked out or you're going to get dropped a lot. The danger is not necessarily in the decision. And what I mean by that is he's not going to take you down and steal rounds by taking you down and controlling you. You're not going to get submitted by Conor McGregor. The danger is in getting tooled up on the feet. And for instance, in the Nate Diaz 2 fight, he lost that fight, but part of the reason that he lost that fight is that he got dropped several times. He kept getting dropped. So the point being is that the danger in losing to Conor is getting knocked out, of course, which you can control by not throwing the strikes that he's going to counter. And then also with that is that you have to realize that you can't rely on. I'm trying to think of how to put this. You can't rely on not understanding that your best path to victory is avoiding the knockout, avoiding that, and trying to steal those later rounds. So if you're coming out there and you're, for instance, okay, we'll get into point number 3 right now. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. Point number 3 is don't throw the right hand. So getting into where I kind of stumbled there a second ago, you saw in Eddie Alvarez got lit the fuck up. Because the reason that he got lit up like he did was that he tried to sneak in the right hand. In the first round, which we already talked about the first round, you have to give it up. You can't throw the right hand in the first round. Honestly, you shouldn't throw the right hand at all against Conor McGregor. You definitely shouldn't throw it in the first 1.5 or 1 to 2 rounds. Eddie threw the right hand, but he tried to sneak the right hand in. And if you watch the highlights, which are all over YouTube, and I highly advise you go back and watch them, his first right hand that he threw, it was super clean, it was super timed, it was super sneaky. Conor countered it perfect. He knew it was coming. He saw the sneak in it, and he was still able to slip it just by a millisecond and to counter with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 combo that just completely screwed up the rest of the fight for Eddie Alvarez. So if you're Tony Ferguson, you do not throw the right hand. You accept that you're not going to throw the right hand, and as long as you don't throw the right hand, you're going to be okay as an orthodox fighter. You're going to survive. You're going to be okay. Do not throw the right hand. Accept that you're not able to throw it, and as long as you accept that, especially in the first 2 rounds, you're going to be okay. Point 4, okay, your strategy is going to be you give it the first round, you maybe win round 2. And what I mean by that is that rounds 1.5, you're cool, man. You're chilling. You're moving. You're flowing. You're not trying to do too much because you're trying to just get this guy to deeper waters than he's already in. Conor is a completely different fighter. When he's fresh, he's the most dangerous fighter in the world. And when he gets unfresh, he's still pretty good. He's still pretty damn good, but he's not super, super, super dangerous. And that's just a reality situation. He's not going to head kick you. He's not going to knee in the face, but he's got this super left hand that you have to watch out for, and that's really dangerous in the first 2 rounds. So the point being is that in the first round and a half, you're kind of just chilling. You might maybe win round 2, and the reason you would win that is if you can clinch, if you maybe can get a takedown, maybe you can land some jabs, maybe you can land some elbows, leg kicks. Maybe you can outpoint him in the second round, but the point being is that you're kind of chilling in the first 2 rounds. Counter-strike clinch, rounds 1 to 5. So your strategy in the first 2 rounds is if he's stalking you down. So what's going to happen is if you're fighting that way, you're kind of fighting passive, you would assume he's going to stalk you. That's how he's going to draw you, and he's going to stalk you down. You're counter-striking. Counter-strike clinch. So you're not counter-striking to knock him out. You're counter-striking to get him into clinch, get him against a fence, wear his arms out, get him up there, tiring him out, and just wear him down a little bit. You're trying to draw him into deep waters. Once he gets into the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th round, it's open waters, man. You can take him down. You can use your better wrestling. You can use anything. Like, he's not the same guy. He doesn't have the same pop on his strikes, and it's not going to change, unfortunately, for him, because you can change all the stuff you want to change, but unfortunately, with the injuries that he's had, you can't completely change his approach to training unless he's willing to put himself at more injury risk, which I don't know if they're able to do that because they're worried about just showing up to the fight, as I've said before. But hey, I'm going to wrap this up. Please like this video if you like the content of it. Please just subscribe to it. I'm going to break down a lot of fights. I'd like to get into a lot of deep things. In regards to MMA, I'd like to break down a lot of fights. If you found this interesting or you found this not completely terrible, please subscribe, and I'll keep putting out content. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.